Hey there, you awesome viewer. Picture this, it's a super hot summer day. The sun is shining bright, the air feels sticky, and kids are running around laughing like crazy. I'm just a guy named Jake, driving my ice cream truck, trying to make some money. I love my job handing out popsicles, scooping ice cream, and playing that happy, jingly tune that makes everyone smile. You know the one, right? Da-da-da-da-dum. It's the sound of fun. I thought today would be an easy, chill day. Just me, my truck, and a bunch of happy kids. But oh boy, was I wrong. Someone was watching me. Someone was waiting to mess everything up. And trust me, you won't believe who it was or why they did it. Before we start this wild story, I've got a little question for you. Have you ever met someone who thinks they're the boss of everyone? Like, they tell you what to do even when they shouldn't? Think about it. Maybe it's someone at school, or maybe a grown-up who acts all big and important. Tell me about it in the comments below. Oh, and let me know where you're watching from today, like, are you at home, at school, or maybe outside somewhere? And if you love crazy, fun stories like this one, hit that subscribe button right now. It's free, and it means you won't miss the next wild adventure I tell you about. Okay, ready? Let's dive in because what happened that day was way crazier than a melted ice cream mess. So, there I was, driving my ice cream truck down the street. It's a big, white truck with pictures of ice cream cones painted on the sides. The kids call it Jake's Treat Machine, and I think that's pretty cool. I've got a little window where I hand out the goodies: strawberry popsicles, chocolate cones, and those twisty soft serve ones that make your tongue happy. The truck's got a freezer inside to keep everything cold, and I've got a little bell I ring sometimes to let everyone know I'm here. Ding ding ding. That's me saying, come get your ice cream. It was about noon, and the sun was so hot I could feel it through my shirt. I was in a neighborhood with big, fancy houses. You know the kind: tall windows, green lawns that look perfect, and flowers everywhere. The kids were out playing, some on bikes, some kicking a ball, and some just running around screaming because that's what kids do when it's summer. I pulled my truck over near a park area where the street was wide. I turned on the jingly music, and right away, kids started running toward me. Jake. Jake. Ice cream, they shouted. Their faces were all smiley, and I could tell they were excited. I love that part of my job, making kids happy with something as simple as a popsicle. I opened my little window and started taking orders. What do you want today? I asked a girl with pigtails. Strawberry, please, she said, holding up $2. I handed her a bright red popsicle, and she ran off giggling. Next was a boy with a baseball cap. Chocolate cone, he yelled, jumping up and down. I scooped it quick and gave it to him. Thanks, Jake, he said, and off he went. It was going great. The line was growing, and I was busy scooping and smiling. I thought, this is the best day ever. Nothing can go wrong. But then, I saw her. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed someone walking toward me. She wasn't a kid. She wasn't even smiling. She looked mad, like, really mad. She had sunglasses pushed up on her head, a fancy shirt, and her arms were crossed tight across her chest. She was stomping over like she owned the whole street. I didn't know her name yet, but I could tell she was trouble. Big trouble. The kind of trouble that makes your stomach feel all twisty, like when you know something bad is about to happen. I kept scooping ice cream, but I watched her get closer. The kids didn't notice her, they were too busy licking their treats and laughing. But I could feel her staring at me, like her eyes were burning holes right through my truck. I thought, who is this lady? Why does she look so angry? I mean, it's just ice cream. What's there to be mad about? But she didn't stop. She kept coming, and when she got close, she opened her mouth and let out the loudest yell I'd ever heard. You can't be here, she shouted. Her voice was sharp, like a teacher yelling at a kid who broke a rule. This is our neighborhood. You're not allowed to park that noisy truck here. I blinked at her, surprised. The kids stopped talking and looked at her too. I put down my ice cream scoop and leaned out my window a little. Hi, I said, trying to be nice. I've got a permit. That means I'm allowed to sell ice cream here. It's all okay. But she didn't care. She shook her head so hard her sunglasses almost fell off. No, she yelled. This is HOA territory. I'm in charge around here, and I say you have to leave now. I didn't know what HOA meant at first, but I figured it was some kind of group that makes rules for the neighborhood. Still, I wasn't breaking any laws. I had my papers to prove it. So I said, "Ma'am, I'm just selling ice cream to the kids. It's no big deal." That made her even madder. Her face turned all red, like a tomato about to pop. "No big deal," she screamed. "You're loud. You're messy. You're ruining everything. I'm calling the cops right now." She pulled a phone out of her pocket and started tapping on it. The kids looked scared now. One little boy whispered, "Jake, are you in trouble?" I smiled at him and said, "Nah, don't worry. It's fine." But inside, I wasn't so sure. This lady was serious. She was really calling the police over ice cream. I watched her put the phone to her ear. "Hello, 911, she said, super loud so everyone could hear. "Yes, there's a trespasser in our neighborhood. He's bothering us with a stupid ice cream truck. Send someone quick." I couldn't believe it. Trespasser. Bothering. I was just standing there with popsicles. The kids started whispering to each other, and a few parents peeked out of their houses to see what was going on. I thought, this is nuts. Who gets this mad about ice cream? But here's the thing, I wasn't scared. Not yet. Because I had a feeling something else was happening. See, I'd been coming to this neighborhood for a while. I'd seen stuff, little things that didn't add up. Like how this lady's house always had weird cars parked outside late at night. Or how people whispered about missing money from the HOA, whatever that was. I didn't know the whole story, but I knew she wasn't as perfect as she acted. She was hiding something. And maybe, just maybe, I was about to find out what. The kids were still eating their ice cream, but they were quieter now. The lady, let's call her Karen, because that's what she acted like, was pacing back and forth, talking on her phone. "Yes, he's still here," she said. "Hurry up." I leaned against my truck, watching her. I wasn't going anywhere. I had every right to be there, and I wasn't gonna let her scare me off. But I had no idea what was coming next. No idea that this day was about to get a whole lot crazier. See, while Karen was yelling about me, something else was happening. Something she didn't see. Down the street, a police car was creeping closer. Its lights were off, and it wasn't making any noise. It wasn't speeding like it would if it was answering her call. No, this was different. It was sneaky, like the cops were already planning something. I noticed it, but Karen didn't. She was too busy acting like the queen of the neighborhood. I thought, wait a minute. Why are they already here? My heart started beating a little faster. Not because I was in trouble, I knew I wasn't, but because I had a hunch. A big one. What if the cops weren't coming for me? What if they were coming for her? I didn't know it yet, but I was right. And that's when this ordinary summer day turned into something straight out of a movie. So, what do you think so far? Can you imagine being there, hearing that jingly music, and then boom, Karen shows up to ruin it? I bet you've got some guesses about what happens next. Stick with me, because this story's just getting started. Karen thought she was in control, but she had no clue what was about to hit her. And me? I was just the ice cream guy caught in the middle of it all. Crazy, right? Let's keep going, but first, tell me, what would you do if someone yelled at you for no reason? Would you stay calm like me, or would you yell back? Drop your answer in the comments. Oh, and don't forget to say where you're watching from. I want to know if you're out there in the sun like I was that day, or maybe cozy inside with some ice cream of your own. Alright, here we go, the next part's gonna blow your mind. So, there I was, parked near this fancy neighborhood. Picture it, big houses with shiny windows, perfect green lawns that look like they're cut with scissors, and flowers all neat and pretty along the sidewalks. You know the type, everything's so perfect it almost looks fake. My ice cream truck was right by the curb, white and bright with pictures of popsicles and cones painted on the sides. The kids were lined up, all bouncy and excited for their treats. "Jake! Jake!" they shouted, waving their dollars and jumping up and down. It was awesome seeing their happy faces, all ready for some ice cream on this hot day. I had my little window open, scooping and handing out goodies like a pro. A girl with a big smile asked for a vanilla cone, so I twirled the soft serve just right and gave it to her. "Here you go," I said. She giggled and ran off. Then a boy with freckles wanted a blue popsicle, so I grabbed one from the freezer and tossed it to him. "Thanks, Jake," he yelled, tearing the wrapper off fast. The line kept growing, and the jingly music from my truck da-da-da-da-dum kept playing. It felt like the best day ever. Kids laughing, sun shining, ice cream melting a little on their hands. What could go wrong? But then, out of nowhere, she showed up. Let's call her Karen. Yep, that kind of Karen. You know what I mean, right? The type of person who thinks they're the boss of everything and everyone. She wasn't sneaky about it either. She marched right out of one of those big houses, stomping across the perfect lawn like she was on a mission. She had sunglasses perched on top of her head, not over her eyes, like she wanted everyone to see how mad she was. Her arms were crossed tight across her chest, and her face? Oh man, she had a glare that could scare a puppy. I'm not kidding, her eyes were all squinty and mean, like she could zap me with a look. I didn't even see her at first. I was too busy scooping ice cream and chatting with the kids. But then I heard her shoes clomp, clomp, clomp getting closer. I looked up, and there she was, standing right in front of my truck. The kids didn't notice her yet, they were too busy licking their treats, but I did. And I knew right away she wasn't here to buy a popsicle. She stopped, put her hands on her hips, and then she yelled so loud I almost dropped my ice cream scoop. "You can't park here," she shouted. Her voice was sharp and angry, like a teacher catching you running in the hall. "This is HOA territory, and I'm calling the cops." I blinked at her, surprised. The kids stopped talking and turned to look. HOA territory? I thought. I wasn't totally sure what that meant, but I figured it was some fancy group that makes rules for the neighborhood. Still, I didn't get why she was so mad. It's just an ice cream truck. I'm not hurting anyone. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Ma'am," I said, nice and polite, "I've got a permit. That's a paper that says I'm allowed to be here. I'm just selling ice cream to kids." I even smiled a little, hoping she'd chill out. But nope, she wasn't having it. Not even a little bit. Her face got redder, like she was about to explode. "A permit?" she screamed. "I don't care about your permit. This is my neighborhood, and I say you're not allowed." She pointed at me like I was some bad guy in a movie. The kids started looking confused. A little girl holding a strawberry popsicle tugged on her friend's shirt and whispered, "Why is she yelling at Jake?" Her friend shrugged, eyes big. I could tell they didn't get it either. Neither did I. I mean, seriously. Over ice cream? I scratched my head, thinking, this lady's nuts. Who calls the cops over something this small? But Karen wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. She whipped out her phone from her pocket so fast it was like magic. She held it up high, like she wanted everyone to see what she was doing. Then she punched in some numbers, beep, 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 and put it to her ear. "I'm calling 911 right now," she yelled, glaring at me. The kids gasped. One boy dropped his cone on the ground, and it splattered all melty on the pavement. "Oops," he mumbled, but he didn't even pick it up, he was too busy staring at Karen. I leaned out my window a little, still trying to figure her out. "Ma'am," I said again, "you don't need to do that. I'm not breaking any rules." But she didn't even look at me. She just started shouting into her phone. "Hello, 911? Yes, there's a trespasser harassing our neighborhood," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He's got this noisy ice cream truck, and he won't leave. Send the police quick." I shook my head, thinking, trespasser? Harassing? Lady, I'm just standing here with popsicles. The kids were really confused now. A boy with a green popsicle asked me, "Jake, are you gonna get arrested?" His voice was all wobbly, like he was scared for me. I smiled at him and said, "Nah, buddy, don't worry. I'm fine." But inside, I wasn't so sure. I mean, calling the cops? That's a big deal. What if they believed her instead of me? I had my permit, sure, but Karen was acting like she ruled the world. And she was loud, really loud. I looked around. Some parents were stepping out of their houses now, peeking over fences and standing on porches. They heard Karen yelling and wanted to see what was up. A lady with a baby on her hip frowned, and a guy watering his lawn turned off his hose to listen. It was turning into a big scene, all because of this one angry lady. I thought, great. Now everyone's watching. This is so embarrassing. But here's the thing, Karen didn't know something. She didn't know I'd already spotted something shady about her. See, I'd been driving my ice cream truck around this neighborhood for weeks. I'm not just some random guy, I pay attention. And I'd seen stuff. Weird stuff. Like how Karen's house always had strange cars pulling up late at night. Big black vans, sometimes a rusty old truck, coming and going when everyone else was asleep. I'd hear them when I did my late routes, dropping off extra ice cream to stores. It was odd, but I didn't think much of it at first. Then there were the whispers. Kids talk, you know. They'd say things while waiting for their treats. Karen's mean, one girl told me once, licking a cone. She yells at everybody. Another boy said, my dad says she's in charge of the HOA money, but nobody knows where it goes. I didn't know what that meant back then, but it stuck in my head. Missing money? Strange cars? It was like pieces of a puzzle, and I was starting to wonder if Karen wasn't as perfect as she acted. So while she was yelling at me, waving her phone around like a weapon, I wasn't just mad or scared. I was curious. Something big was coming her way, I could feel it. And I had a front row seat to watch it all go down. She thought she was winning, scaring me off with her big voice and her 911 call. But I had a hunch she was the one who should be worried. The kids were still lined up, but they weren't smiling as much now. Karen kept pacing back and forth in front of my truck, talking on her phone. Yes, he's still here, she shouted. He's ruining our neighborhood. Hurry up. I leaned against the side of my truck, arms crossed, watching her. I wasn't going anywhere. I had my permit, and I wasn't breaking any rules. Plus, I wanted to see what happened next. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about ice cream. Not even close. Karen's sunglasses slid down a little, and she pushed them back up, still glaring at me. You're in big trouble, mister, she snapped. The cops are coming, and they'll make you leave. I just shrugged. Okay, I said, calm as could be. That made her even madder. She stomped her foot thump, and turned away, muttering into her phone. The kids started whispering again. She's so loud, one girl said. Why's she hate ice cream? A boy asked. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. This was serious and getting weirder by the minute. I glanced down the street, just a quick look. That's when I saw it, a police car. It was far away, rolling slow toward us. No lights flashing, no siren blaring. It didn't look like it was rushing to answer Karen's call. It looked sneaky. Like it was already coming this way before she even dialed. My heart beat a little faster. What's going on? I thought. Karen didn't see it, she was too busy yelling, but I did. And that's when I started to wonder, what if the cops aren't here for me? What if they're here for her? I didn't say anything. I just kept watching. Karen was still marching around, acting like she owned the whole neighborhood. The kids were eating their ice cream quieter now, sneaking looks at her. The parents on their porches were watching too, and the air felt thick, like something big was about to happen. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I was right. Something shady was up with Karen, and I was about to find out what. She had no idea I'd seen those cars, heard those whispers. She thought she was in charge, but she didn't know the real trouble was headed her way. So there I stood, leaning on my truck, scooping ice cream like it was no big deal. But inside, I was buzzing. This wasn't just a fight about parking, it was something way bigger. And I couldn't wait to see how it all played out. Karen thought she had me beat, but she was wrong. Dead wrong. So there I was, leaning on my ice cream truck, watching Karen stomp around like she was the queen of the world. She was still yelling into her phone, telling the 911 people all about how I was some big, bad troublemaker. He's harassing us, she shouted again, waving her free hand in the air. You need to send someone now. Her voice was so loud it echoed off the big houses around us. The kids in line were staring at her, their ice cream melting in their hands. One little girl's strawberry popsicle dripped onto her shoe, but she didn't even notice. She was too busy watching Karen freak out. I stayed calm, scooping a chocolate cone for a boy who looked nervous. "Here you go," I said, handing it over with a smile. "Don't worry about her, okay?" He nodded, but his eyes kept darting to Karen. She was pacing back and forth in front of my truck, her fancy shoes making that clomp, clomp, clomp sound on the pavement. Every step she took made her look madder, like a volcano about to blow up. I thought, geez, lady, it's just ice cream. Why are you acting like I stole your dog or something? The parents watching from their porches were whispering to each other now. I could see them pointing and shaking their heads. A lady with curly hair leaned over her fence and said something to a guy in a blue shirt. He nodded and crossed his arms, staring at Karen. I wondered what they were saying. Did they know her? Did they think she was crazy too? I mean, who calls the cops over an ice cream truck? It was nuts. Karen didn't care who was watching, though. She just kept going. "Yes, he's still here," she barked into her phone. "He's got this loud music playing, and he's blocking the street." I rolled my eyes. Blocking the street? My truck was parked nice and neat by the curb. And the music wasn't even that loud, it's just the jingly tune that comes with every ice cream truck. Da-da-da-da-dum. Kids love it. But to Karen, it was like I was blasting a big concert or something. I tried talking to her one more time. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice soft, "I'm not blocking anything. Look, the street's wide open. Cars can get by just fine." I pointed down the road to show her, but she didn't even glance that way. She just spun around and yelled, "Don't talk to me. You're in big trouble, mister. The police are coming, and they'll take you away." Her sunglasses wobbled on her head, and she shoved them back up with an angry huff. The kids were getting antsy now. A boy with a baseball cap tugged on my sleeve through the window. "Jake, is she really gonna get you in trouble?" he asked. His voice was quiet, like he didn't want Karen to hear. I winked at him. "Nah, I'm good," I said. "She's just loud. Nothing to worry about." But I wasn't totally sure. I mean, I had my permit, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. But what if the cops showed up and took her side? People like Karen sometimes get their way just by being loud and pushy. I'd seen it before. Still, I wasn't scared, not really. Because while Karen was busy making a big scene, I was thinking about those shady things I'd noticed about her. Like those weird cars at her house. I remembered one night, maybe 2 weeks ago, when I was driving home after a long day. It was dark, and the neighborhood was quiet. But as I passed Karen's house, that big one with the red door, I saw a black van parked in her driveway. The back doors were open, and 2 guys were carrying boxes inside. Big, heavy-looking boxes. It was late, like 10 at night. Who gets deliveries that late? And why so sneaky? I didn't stop that night, I just kept driving. But it stuck with me. Then there was another time, a few days later, when I saw a rusty old truck parked there. It was early morning, before I started my route. A guy in a hoodie was unloading something, looking around like he didn't want anyone to see. I thought, that's weird. Most people get stuff delivered during the day, right? Not Karen, though. She had all these secret-looking drop-offs, and it made me wonder what she was up to. And then there were the things the kids said. Like that boy who talked about the HOA money. "My dad says it's gone," he told me one day, licking a green popsicle. He says Karen's supposed to fix stuff like the park swings, but she doesn't. I didn't know much about the HOA, but I figured it was a group that collects money to make the neighborhood nice. So where was the money going if the swings were still broken? It didn't add up. And the more I thought about it, the more I felt like Karen was hiding something big. Back in the moment, Karen was still on her phone, pacing like a wild animal. "Hurry up," she yelled at the 911 person. "He's ruining everything." I almost laughed. Ruining everything? I was just standing there, scooping ice cream. The kids were still in line, but some of them were stepping back now, staying out of Karen's way. A little girl with pigtails hid behind her big brother, peeking out at Karen like she was a monster. I didn't blame her, Karen was acting pretty scary. I looked down the street again, and that police car was closer now. It was still moving slow, no lights, no sound. My stomach did a little flip. Why are they already here? I thought. Karen's call just happened, she couldn't have gotten them here that fast. It was like they were coming for something else. Something they already knew about. I glanced at Karen, and she still hadn't noticed. She was too busy shouting and pointing at me. You're done for, she snapped, glaring at me again. The cops will be here any second. I shrugged, trying to look cool even though my brain was buzzing. Okay, I said. We'll see. That made her huff really loud, like a dragon puffing smoke. You think this is funny, she yelled. You won't be laughing when they arrest you. I didn't answer, I just kept scooping ice cream, acting like she wasn't there. But inside, I was starting to put it all together. What if those weird cars and missing money had something to do with this? What if Karen wasn't just a mean lady who hated ice cream? What if she was in real trouble? I didn't have proof, but I had a feeling. A big one. And that police car creeping closer? It was making me think I might be right. Karen was so busy yelling at me, she didn't see what was coming. But I did. And I wasn't going anywhere, I wanted to watch this play out. The air felt heavy now, like before a storm. The kids were quiet, the parents were watching, and Karen was still stomping around, acting like she'd won. You're a trespasser, she shouted one more time, pointing her phone at me like it was a sword. You don't belong here. I just smiled a little and handed a popsicle to a girl in line. Here you go, I said, nice and calm. Karen growled, actually growled, and turned away, muttering to herself. I took a deep breath and looked at the police car again. It was almost here now, just a few houses away. 2 cops were inside, and I could see their faces serious, not smiling. My heart beat faster, but not because I was scared for me. I was excited. Something big was about to happen, and Karen had no clue. She thought she was calling the shots, but she didn't know I'd seen her secrets. She didn't know I'd been watching, just like she was watching me now. The kids started whispering again. Cops are coming, one boy said, pointing down the street. Are they gonna take Jake? A girl asked, her voice all shaking. I shook my head. Nope, I said. I'm fine. Just watch. They looked at me, confused, but I could tell they trusted me. And I trusted my gut. Karen was in for a surprise, and I was ready to see it happen. So there we were, Karen yelling, the kids waiting, the parents staring, and me standing by my truck, cool as a cucumber. The police car rolled closer, tires quiet on the pavement. Karen still didn't see it. She was too busy telling the 911 person how awful I was. But I saw it. And I knew this wasn't about me anymore. Something shady was up with Karen, and it was about to come crashing down. I had the best spot to watch it all right here, with my ice cream scoop in hand. Karen's still on her call, pacing around like she owns the whole street. She's walking back and forth in front of my ice cream truck, her fancy shoes going clomp, clomp, clomp on the pavement. Her phone's glued to her ear, and she's yelling so loud I bet the neighbors 3 streets over can hear her. Yes, he's still here, she shouts. He's bothering everyone. Hurry up. Her sunglasses are sliding down her head again, and she shoves them back up with an angry huff. She looks like a storm cloud ready to burst, all red-faced and mad. I keep serving the kids, though. I'm not gonna let her ruin their day or mine. A little boy with messy hair asks for a chocolate cone, so I scoop it quick and hand it over. Here you go, buddy, I say, smiling. He grins back and runs off, licking it before it melts. The line's still there, kids holding their dollars, waiting for their turn. They're quieter now, sneaking looks at Karen, but they still want their ice cream. I'm glad they're the reason I'm here, not her. But while I'm scooping, I'm watching her out of the corner of my eye. I can't help it. She's loud and mean, but there's more to this, and I'm starting to figure it out. See, I'd been in this neighborhood before. Lots of times. I drive my ice cream truck here every week, sometimes twice if it's hot. It's a nice place, big houses, perfect lawns, kids playing everywhere. But I'd heard whispers. Little things people say when they think no one's listening. Like rumors about HOA fees disappearing. The HOA, that's the group that makes rules for the neighborhood and takes money to fix stuff, like the park or the streets. Kids would tell me things while they waited for their treats. My mom says the HOA money's gone, one girl said once, holding a blue popsicle. Karen's supposed to use it for swings, but they're still broken. I didn't think much of it then, just kid talk, you know? But it stuck in my head. And then there were the weird late night deliveries to her house. I'd seen them myself. One night, maybe a month ago, I was driving home late after dropping off extra ice cream at a store. It was dark, and the streets were empty. But as I passed Karen's house, that big one with the red door, I saw something odd. A black van was parked in her driveway, back doors wide open. Two guys were carrying boxes inside, big ones that looked heavy. They kept looking around, like they didn't want anyone to see. It was super late, past bedtime for most people. I thought, who gets stuff delivered at night? I didn't stop to ask, but I remembered it. And it wasn't the only time. Another day, early in the morning before my route, I saw a rusty old truck at her place. A guy in a hoodie was unloading something, maybe bags or crates, I couldn't tell. He moved fast, sneaking glances over his shoulder. It was creepy, like a secret mission. I wondered, what's she doing with all this stuff? It didn't make sense. Most people get groceries or packages in the daytime, not shady deliveries when everyone's asleep. Those little hints were piling up, and I was starting to think Karen wasn't just a mean lady who hated ice cream. She was up to something sneaky. So today, something felt off. Really off. Karen was yelling at me, sure, but it was more than that. The air felt heavy, like when you know a big rain's coming. I handed a strawberry popsicle to a girl with pigtails and peeked at Karen again. She was still pacing, shouting into her phone. "He's a trespasser," she said. "He's ruining our neighborhood." I almost laughed. Ruining it? With ice cream? Come on. But then I noticed it's something that made my heart beat a little faster. A police car was rolling up the street. Slow, real slow. No lights flashing, no siren wailing. It wasn't screaming down the road like cops do when someone calls 911 in a hurry. No, this was different. Quiet. Sneaky. Like they were already headed here before Karen even dialed. I saw it through the window of my truck, creeping closer, tires barely making a sound. My eyes got big. What's this? I thought. Karen was too busy yelling to notice. Yeah, he's a threat, she was saying, waving her free hand at me. I smirked a little. Lady, you have no idea what's about to hit you. The cops parked a few houses down, just out of Karen's sight. Two officers stepped out, big guys with serious faces. They didn't run or rush. They just started walking toward us, calm and steady. I kept scooping ice cream, acting like everything was normal, but my brain was buzzing. Why are they already here? I wondered. Karen's call just happened, she couldn't have gotten them here that fast. It was like they were coming for something else. Something they'd been planning. Karen finally hung up her phone and spun around to face me. The cops are on their way, she yelled, pointing at me like I was a bad dog. You're done, mister. They'll arrest you and take that stupid truck away. She crossed her arms and smirked, like she'd won a big prize. The kids gasped. One boy dropped his popsicle wrapper on the ground and whispered, "Jake, are you in trouble?" I shook my head. "Nope," I said, winking. "Just watch." Then Karen saw the cops. They were closer now, walking right up the street toward us. Her face lit up like she'd hit the jackpot. "There they are," she screeched, waving her arms like she was calling a plane to land. "Officers! Over here! Arrest this guy!" She pointed at me again, bouncing on her toes like she couldn't wait. The kids stepped back, holding their ice cream tight. A little girl hid behind her brother, peeking out with big eyes. The parents on their porches leaned forward, watching. Everyone was staring now. But the officers? They barely glanced at me. They didn't even stop by my truck. Their eyes were locked on Karen, and they kept walking straight toward her. I saw it clear as day. One cop had a paper in his hand, folded neat, and the other had a frown that said trouble. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy flapping her arms. "He's the one," she yelled. "He's trespassing. Get him out of here." She sounded so sure, so proud. I leaned against my truck, scooping a vanilla cone for a kid who was still brave enough to stay in line. I handed it over and watched the cops get closer. My smirk got bigger. This isn't about me, I thought. This is about her. And that's when I knew for sure this wasn't about my ice cream truck at all. Something bigger was happening, and Karen was about to find out. The cop stopped a few steps away from her. Karen kept talking, not even looking at their faces. He's been here all day, she said. Loud music, messy kids, ruining everything. Take him away. But the lead cop, the tall one with the paper, held up a hand. Ma'am, he said, calm but firm. Stop talking. Karen froze, her mouth half open. What? She snapped. I called you. He's the problem. The cop shook his head. We're not here for him, he said. His voice was low, but it cut through the air like a knife. Karen's smirk disappeared. Her arms dropped to her sides, and her phone slipped a little in her hand. What? She stammered. What do you mean? The kids went super quiet. Even the ones licking their ice cream stopped to stare. The parents on their porches leaned closer, and I could feel everyone holding their breath. The second cop stepped up, looking right at her. We need to talk to you, Karen Mitchell, he said. Her eyes got huge. Me, she squeaked. Why me? I'm the one who called. The tall cop unfolded the paper in his hand. We've been watching you, he said. For a while now. Karen's face went white, like all the color drained out of it. I couldn't help it, I grinned. Oh yeah, I thought. This is getting good. See, those whispers I'd heard? Those late night deliveries. They weren't just random things. They were clues. And the cops knew it too. Karen thought she was in charge, yelling at me like I was the bad guy. But she didn't know I'd seen stuff. She didn't know I'd told a friend about those weird vans, and he'd told someone else. Little hints I'd dropped here and there, not even thinking they'd matter. But they did. And now the cops were here not for me, but for her. Karen started backing up, her shoes scraping the pavement. This is ridiculous, she yelled, but her voice was shaky now. I didn't do anything. He's the trespasser. She pointed at me again, weaker this time. The tall cop didn't even look my way. We'll get to that, he said. But first, we're here for you. The kids gasped again. One girl whispered, what's happening? Her brother shrugged, eyes wide. I kept serving ice cream, acting cool, but inside I was buzzing. She's in trouble, I thought. Big trouble. Those rumors about the HOA money. The shady deliveries. It was all adding up. Karen thought she could scare me off, but she didn't see the real problem, her own secrets catching up. The cops were calm, standing there like they had all the time in the world. But Karen? She looked like a trapped animal, eyes darting around. The air got thicker, like something huge was about to explode. The kids stayed close to my truck, watching. The parents stepped off their porches, inching nearer. Karen clutched her phone tight, like it could save her. You've got the wrong person, she said, louder now. I'm the victim here. But the cops didn't move. They just stared at her, and I knew this was only the beginning. So there we were, right in the middle of this crazy mess. Karen's pacing stopped, and she was standing in front of my ice cream truck, still holding her phone like it was her lifeline. The kids were watching, the parents were peeking, and I was leaning on my truck, waiting to see what happened next. That's when the lead cop stepped up. He was a tall guy, big and strong, with a serious face that said he wasn't messing around. He looked at Karen and said, calm but loud, ma'am, put the phone down. We need to talk. Karen froze, like someone hit a pause button on her. Her mouth hung open, and her eyes got all wide and buggy. What? She squeaked, her voice all high and shaky. No, I called you. He's the problem. She jabbed a finger at me so fast I thought it might fly off her hand. She was pointing like I was some bad guy who just robbed a bank or something. I just stood there, holding my ice cream scoop, thinking, really? Still me? But the cop didn't even blink. He shook his head, slow and steady, and said, we're not here for him. We're here for you, Karen Mitchell. The kids went super quiet. Like, dead silent. No whispering, no giggling, nothing. The little girl with pigtails dropped her popsicle, and it splatted on the ground red and sticky, but she didn't even care. She just stared at Karen. I stopped scooping ice cream, my hand frozen mid-air with a vanilla cone half done. Everyone was looking at Karen now, and her face? Oh man, it was wild. First it turned red, like a big, ripe tomato. Then, a second later, it went white pale as a ghost. "Emmy," she stammered, her voice all wobbly. "What are you talking about?" The tall cop didn't answer right away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a paper. It was folded neat, but when he opened it, I could see writing all over it. "This is a warrant," he said, holding it up so Karen could see. Her eyes got even bigger, like they might pop out. "We've been investigating you for months," he went on. "Embezzling HOA funds, fake charity scams, you name it. That 911 call you just made? It just made it easier to find you. The air got so thick you could feel it." Karen's mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then she yelled, "What?" so loud it hurt my ears. The kids jumped a little, and a boy with a baseball cap grabbed his sister's hand. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Not a big laugh, just a little one, but it slipped out. This was too good. Karen's jaw dropped so low I thought it might hit the ground. She looked at me, then at the cop, then back at me, like she couldn't believe what was happening. The second cop stepped up then. He was shorter, with a buzz cut, and he had handcuffs dangling from his belt. "Hands behind your back," he said, real calm. Karen freaked out. "This is ridiculous," she screamed, waving her arms like a wild bird. "I'm the victim here. He's the one you should arrest." She pointed at me again, but the cops didn't even look my way. The short cop grabbed her wrists gentle but firm and snapped the handcuffs on. Click, click. The sound was sharp, and Karen's face twisted up like she'd eaten a sour lemon. The kids gasped. "She's getting arrested," a boy whispered, loud enough for me to hear. "Whoa," said a girl with braids, her eyes huge. The parents on their porches started walking closer, phones out, taking pictures or videos. This was big, really big. Karen kept yelling, her voice all high and panicky. "You've got the wrong person. I didn't do anything." But the cops weren't listening. They had her now, and they weren't letting go. Then it got even better. The tall cop turned to me. "Yep, me, Jake the ice cream guy," and nodded. "Thanks for the tip, Jake," he said. "That last delivery you saw sealed the deal." I grinned so big my cheeks hurt. The kids looked at me like I was a superhero. "What?" Karen screeched, twisting in the handcuffs. "What tip? What delivery?" She was losing it, and I was loving every second. "See, here's the thing, I'd called in a suspicious truck I'd seen at her place weeks ago. It was one of those late-night deliveries, another weird one. I was driving by after a long day, and there it was, a big gray truck parked in her driveway. Two guys were unloading boxes again, sneaky as always. I didn't know what was in them, but it looked wrong. So I told a buddy of mine who knows a cop. "Hey, check this out," I'd said. "Something's fishy over there." I didn't think much of it, just passing it along. But turns out, it was the missing piece they needed. Who knew my ice cream route would turn me into a neighborhood hero? Karen's head whipped around to glare at me. "You," she shouted. "You did this." I shrugged, still grinning. "I just saw something weird," I said. "Guess it mattered." The tall cop nodded again. "It did," he said. "We'd been watching her for months stealing HOA money, pretending to raise cash for fake charities. That truck you saw? Stolen goods she was selling. You tipped us off at the right time." The kids cheered, actually cheered. "Jake's a hero," a boy with freckles yelled, pumping his fist. "Yeah," shouted a girl, waving her melting cone. I laughed again, louder this time. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear. "This isn't fair," she wailed as the short cop started walking her toward the police car. "I'm innocent. He's the bad guy." But no one believed her. Not the cops, not the kids, not even the parents snapping pics with their phones. I started scooping ice cream again, feeling pretty awesome. The line of kids got longer, some of them wanted seconds now. "You're cool, Jake," a boy said, handing me $1. "Thanks," I said, giving him a blue popsicle. The cops were almost at their car with Karen, and she was still yelling. "You'll be sorry," she shouted over her shoulder. This isn't over. But it was over for her, at least. The tall cop opened the car door, and the short cop helped her in. She didn't go quietly, kicking her feet a little, but they shut the door with a loud thump. The parents clapped, yep, clapped. Like it was a show, and I guess it kind of was. Good job, Jake, a lady with a baby called out. Thanks for getting rid of her, a guy in a red shirt yelled. I waved at them, feeling like a rock star. The kids crowded around my truck, all talking at once. Did you know she was bad? A girl asked. How'd you catch her? A boy wanted to know. I laughed and said, I didn't catch her. I just saw stuff and told someone. The cops did the rest. But man, it felt good. Karen thought she could boss me around, scare me off with her big voice and her 911 call. She didn't know I'd seen her sneaky trucks, heard the whispers about the HOA money. She didn't know the cops were already onto her months of watching, waiting for the right moment. And that moment? It was now, all because I'd said something about that gray truck. Crazy, right? The police car started up, engine rumbling. Karen's face was pressed against the window, all mad and messy-haired. The kids waved at her, not nice waves, but silly ones, like they were saying goodbye to a clown. Bye, Karen, a boy shouted, and the others laughed. The tall cop tipped his hat to me. Nice work, he said, then got in the driver's seat. The short cop gave me a thumbs up before hopping in too. Then they drove off, slow and steady, with Karen in the back, probably still yelling. I turned back to the kids. Who's next? I asked, holding up my scoop. They all cheered again, pushing forward with their dollars. The sun was still hot, the air was buzzing, and my truck's jingly music kept playing da-da-da-da-dum. It was like nothing had happened, but everything had changed. Karen was gone, the cops were happy, and I was the guy who helped make it happen. Me, Jake, the ice cream guy. Who'd have thought? The parents kept clapping as they walked back to their houses. You're the best, Jake, a mom called. Ice cream's on me next time, a dad shouted. I waved again, feeling all warm inside, not from the sun, but from knowing I'd done something big. Karen's 911 call was supposed to get me in trouble, but it backfired big time. She handed the cops right to her doorstep, and my little tip about that truck. It was the cherry on top. The kids kept talking, all excited. She was so mean, a girl said, licking her cone. Yeah, but Jake beat her, a boy added, grinning. I didn't really beat her, the cops did, but I let them think it. Why not? It was fun. I scooped more ice cream, handing out popsicles and cones like a champ. The line didn't shrink, it grew. Word was spreading, and kids from other streets started running over. Is it true? One asked. Did you get the mean lady arrested? I nodded. Sort of, I said. She got herself arrested. I just helped. And that's how it went down. Karen thought she was the boss, calling the cops to scare me away. But the joke was on her, they were already coming, and I was the one who gave them the last clue. My ice cream truck wasn't just a treat machine anymore, it was a hero machine. Okay, maybe that's a little silly, but it felt true right then. The kids cheered, the parents smiled, and I kept scooping, grinning like I'd won a gold medal. What a day. So there I was, standing by my ice cream truck, watching the police car roll away with Karen in the back. Her face was squished against the window, all mad and sweaty, and her sunglasses were crooked on her head. The kids were still waving silly waves, like they were teasing her, and a few of them stuck out their tongues. Bye-bye, Karen, a boy with a green popsicle shouted, giggling. The girl next to him laughed so hard she almost dropped her cone. I couldn't blame them. Karen had been so loud and mean, and now she was gone. It was like a big, heavy cloud lifted off the neighborhood. The tall cop was already in the driver's seat, starting the car. The engine made a low rumble, and the short cop, the one with the buzz cut, gave me one last thumbs up before hopping in. Take care, Jake, he called out. You did good. I waved back, feeling pretty cool. The car pulled away, slow and steady, and I could still hear Karen yelling something from inside. Her voice was muffled now, like a faraway bark, but I bet she was still saying it was all my fault. Too bad for her, no one was listening anymore. The kids crowded around my truck again, all talking at once. "Jake, you're awesome," a boy with freckles said, bouncing on his toes. "Did you know she was bad the whole time?" a girl with braids asked, her eyes big and shiny. I laughed and shook my head. "Nah," I said, scooping a strawberry cone for her. "I just saw some weird stuff and told someone. The cops figured it out. But they didn't care about that, they thought I was a hero anyway." "You're like a detective," a little boy with a baseball cap yelled, pumping his fist. "Ice cream detective Jake." I grinned. That sounded pretty fun, even if it wasn't totally true. The parents were still clapping, walking back to their houses now. "Way to go, Jake," a mom with curly hair shouted. She was holding a baby who waved a chubby hand at me. "You're the best," a dad in a red shirt called out. "Next time you're here, ice cream's on me." I waved at them too, feeling all warm and happy inside. It wasn't just the hot sun making me feel good, it was knowing I'd helped. Karen had been a big bully, bossing everyone around, and now she was gone. And me? I was just the ice cream guy who accidentally turned into the star of the day. I kept scooping, handing out treats like nothing had happened. The line of kids didn't go away, it got bigger. More kids started running over from other streets, their flip-flops slapping the pavement. "Is it true?" a girl with a ponytail asked, out of breath. "Did you really get the mean lady arrested?" I nodded, handing her a blue popsicle. "Sort of," I said. "She got herself in trouble. I just helped a little." Her eyes got wide. "Cool," she said, then ran off to tell her friends. Soon, my truck was surrounded, kids everywhere, all wanting ice cream and stories. I started telling them bits and pieces while I worked. "So, a few weeks ago," I said, scooping a chocolate cone, "I saw this big gray truck at her house. It was late, and these guys were sneaking boxes inside." The kids leaned in, listening hard. "Boxes?" a boy asked. "What was in them?" I shrugged. "I don't know, maybe stolen stuff. The cops said she was selling things she wasn't supposed to." A girl gasped. "Like a robber?" she asked. "Kinda," I said. "But sneakier." "They loved it?" "Tell us more," a boy with messy hair shouted. So I kept going. "Another time, I heard some kids talking," I said, handing out a vanilla cone. "They said the HOA money was gone. That's the money for fixing swings and stuff. Guess who was in charge of it?" The kids all yelled at once, "Karen." I nodded. "Yep. And the cops said she took it thousands of dollars." Their mouths dropped open. "Whoa," a girl whispered. "She's a thief." I kept scooping, and the stories kept flowing. "The cops were watching her for months," I said. "They knew she was up to no good, stealing money, pretending to help charities but keeping the cash. My tip about that truck? It was the last thing they needed." The kids cheered again. "You're so smart, Jake," a boy said. I laughed. "Nah, just lucky," I told him. But it did feel pretty great. The sun was still high, beating down on us, but no one cared. The air was full of laughs and the jingly music from my truck da-da-da-da-dum, mixing with the kids' chatter. I handed out popsicles and cones faster than ever, my hands sticky with melted ice cream. "What happened when the cops got her?" a girl with pigtails asked. "Oh, she freaked out," I said, grinning. "Yelling, waving her arms, saying she was the victim. But they put those handcuffs on, click, click, and that was it." The kids giggled, imagining it. "She looked so mad," a boy said. "Yeah," I agreed. Her face was all red, then white, like she couldn't decide what to feel. They laughed harder, and I did too. It was funny now, thinking about how Karen thought she'd win. She'd called 911 to get me in trouble, but it backfired big time. The cops were already coming for her, and my little tip about that truck. It made everything click into place. More kids showed up, crowding around. "Did she fight the cops?" a boy with a soccer ball asked. "A little," I said. "She kicked her feet when they put her in the car, but they were too strong." The kids cheered again. "Go, cops," a girl shouted. "Go, Jake," another yelled. I waved my scoop like a wand. "Team effort," I said, and they all clapped. The parents were back on their porches now, still watching and smiling. A lady with a dog waved at me. "You're a legend, Jake," she called. I waved back, feeling like a movie star. The kids kept asking questions. "What's gonna happen to her?" a boy with glasses wondered. "Jail, probably," I said. "The cops said she stole a lot." "That's a big deal." The kids nodded, serious for a second, then went back to eating their ice cream. I looked around, taking it all in. The street was alive, kids laughing, parents chatting, my truck humming with that happy tune. Karen was gone, and it felt like the whole neighborhood could breathe again. I scooped a strawberry cone for a shy girl who'd been waiting quietly. "Thanks, Jake," she whispered. "You're welcome," I said, smiling. It was the best day ever, and it wasn't even over yet. The line kept moving, and I kept talking. "You know what's funny?" I said to the kids. She thought I was the bad guy, but she didn't know I'd seen her sneaky stuff. Those late-night trucks, the missing money. She thought no one noticed. A boy laughed. "She was wrong," he said. "Yep," I agreed. "Big time wrong." The sun started dipping a little, turning the sky orange, but the kids didn't leave. They sat on the grass, eating their treats, asking me to tell the story again. "From the start," a girl begged. So I did. "Okay," I said. "It all started when she stormed over, yelling about my truck, and I went through it, her yelling, the 911 call, the cops showing up, the big twist. They hung on every word, cheering at the good parts. By now, my freezer was getting low. I'd sold so much ice cream. But I didn't care. This was worth it. Karen's big plan to get rid of me turned into her own trap, and I got to be the guy who helped spring it. The kids started making up names for me. "Ice Cream Hero," one shouted. "Detective Popsicle," another said. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my scoop. The police car was long gone now, and the street felt peaceful again. The parents were still buzzing, talking about Karen and how she'd fooled everyone. I heard a dad say, "She acted so high and mighty, but look at her now." A mom nodded. "Good riddance," she said. I smiled to myself. They were right, Karen was done, and it felt amazing. I handed out the last few cones, soaking it all in. Who knew a day selling ice cream could turn into this? Karen thought she'd win, but she didn't see me coming or the cops. My little tip, those sneaky trucks I'd spotted, it all added up to this. I wasn't just Jake the ice cream guy anymore. I was Jake the neighborhood hero, and man, did that feel good. So there we were, watching the police car drive off with Karen in the back. She was hauled off, still yelling about her rights, her voice all high and screechy even as the car turned the corner. "This isn't fair," she shouted, banging on the window with her cuffed hands. "I didn't do anything wrong." But the cops didn't stop, and soon she was just a tiny speck down the street, then gone. The kids didn't care about her whining. They cheered loud, waving their ice creams like little victory flags. "Yay, Jake," a boy with a chocolate cone yelled, holding it up high. "She's gone," a girl with pigtails shouted, jumping up and down. Their sticky hands waved popsicles and cones in the air, like they just won a big game. The tall cop, the one with the serious face, turned to me before he got in the car. "Thanks again, Jake," he said, giving me a nod. "You really helped us out." The short cop with the buzz cut smiled too. "Yeah, good job," he said, tipping his hat a little. I waved at them, feeling all proud inside. "No problem," I said. "Glad I could help." They climbed into the car and drove off, leaving the street quiet, well, quiet except for the kids still cheering and the jingly music from my truck going da-da-da-da-dum. The parents who'd been watching from their porches and yards started clapping real claps, like at the end of a show. "Way to go, Jake," a mom with curly hair called out, smiling big. "You're the best," a dad in a blue shirt shouted, clapping his hands loud. A lady with a little dog walked over and said, "We've been waiting for this." "Thank you." I waved at them all, my grin so wide it hurt my face a little. It felt good, really good to hear that. I was just the ice cream guy, but now I was something more. Turns out, Karen had been stealing thousands of dollars from the HOA. That's the group that collects money from everyone in the neighborhood to fix stuff like playgrounds, swings, and maybe even a pool. It's supposed to make things nice for the kids and families. But Karen? She was in charge of that money, and she didn't use it right. The cops told me later she took it thousands and thousands of dollars and kept it for herself. She'd say it was for repairs or charity, but it wasn't. She lied, and the playground stayed broken, the swings stayed rusty, and the kids didn't get their fun stuff. All because Karen wanted to be sneaky and rich. Now, she's facing jail time, big time in jail. The tall cop said they had proof, papers, pictures, even videos of her doing bad stuff. That gray truck I saw. It was full of things she stole and sold, like fancy stuff from stores she never paid for. She thought she could hide it, but the cops were smarter. They'd been watching her for months, waiting to catch her. My tip about that truck was the last thing they needed, and her 911 call. It just made it easier to grab her right then and there. Talk about a big oops for Karen. The kids didn't know all that yet, but they were happy anyway. She's gone forever, a boy with freckles said, licking his popsicle. No more yelling, a girl with braids cheered, waving her cone. I laughed and kept scooping ice cream, handing out treats to the crowd. The line was still long. Kids from all over the neighborhood kept coming, hearing the story from their friends. Jake beat the mean lady, one shouted as he ran up. Can I have a chocolate cone? I scooped it fast and handed it over. Here you go, I said. And the cops beat her, I just helped. The parents started talking too, walking closer to my truck. She's been a problem for years, a mom with a baby said, shaking her head. Always bossing us around, taking our money. A dad nodded. Yeah, she said the HOA fees were for the park, but nothing got fixed. Now we know why. Another lady smiled at me. You're a hero, Jake. We're free of her. I blushed a little. Me, a hero, but I liked it. Thanks, I said. Just glad she's gone. And get this, the neighborhood was already planning a big party to celebrate. A dad in a red shirt came over and told me, we're gonna have a barbecue next week. No Karen, just fun. You're invited, Jake. I grinned. Sweet. I'll bring the ice cream, I said. The kids overheard and cheered even louder. Ice cream party, a girl yelled, and they all started jumping around. I could picture it: burgers, music, kids running with popsicles, everyone happy. All because Karen's sneaky days were done. I finished my route that day with a huge grin on my face. The sun was dipping low, turning the sky all pink and orange, but I didn't rush. I drove slow, handing out the last of my treats. See you soon, Jake, a boy called as I gave him a blue popsicle. You're the coolest, a girl shouted, waving her vanilla cone. I waved back, feeling like the luckiest guy ever. The kids got their treats, the parents got their justice, and me? I got a story I'll never forget, one I'd tell over and over, probably for years. Karen thought she could boss everyone around, yelling at me, calling the cops, acting like she owned the whole street. She didn't see the real trouble coming, her own secrets catching up to her. Those late-night trucks, the missing HOA money, the fake charities. She thought she was so smart, hiding it all. But I saw stuff. The kids heard stuff. The cops knew stuff. And together, we brought her down without even trying hard. She called 911 to get me, but it got her instead. How funny is that? As I drove my truck down the street, the jingly music still playing, I thought about it all. The kids were safe now, no more mean Karen to scare them. The parents were happy, no more stolen money or broken promises. And the neighborhood? It felt lighter, like everyone could relax and have fun again. I passed the park, those rusty swings, and smiled. Maybe now they'd get fixed. Maybe the kids would get their playground back. All because Karen's game was over. I stopped at one last house where a little boy was waiting. Jake, he yelled, running up with $1. Did you really stop the bad lady? I handed him a strawberry popsicle and nodded. Yep, I said. She's gone for good. He grinned big. You're like a superhero, he said, then ran off to tell his mom. I laughed. Me, a superhero? Maybe not, but I'd take it. The day was winding down, but the excitement wasn't. People kept waving as I drove by. Thanks, Jake, a lady shouted from her porch. You rock, a guy called, watering his lawn. I waved back every time, my grin never fading. My truck was almost empty, no more cones, just a few popsicles left, but I didn't mind. It was worth it. Every scoop, every smile, Every cheer made it the best day ever. I thought about Karen one more time as I turned the corner. She'd been so loud, so sure she'd win. "You can't park here," she'd yelled. "I'm calling the cops." She thought she had all the power, but she didn't know her own secrets were sneaking up behind her. Those trucks I saw, the whispers about the money, it all piled up until she couldn't hide anymore. The cops had her number, and I gave them the last push. Now she was off to jail, and we were free. The sky was full of stars by the time I finished my route. I parked my truck at home, turned off the music, and just sat there for a minute, smiling. What a wild day. I'd started it thinking it'd be normal, just ice cream and kids, but it turned into so much more. Karen got what she deserved, the neighborhood got peace, and I got a story that'd make everyone laugh and cheer. I couldn't wait to tell it at that party next week, maybe with a big scoop of chocolate for myself. The kids' cheers echoed in my head as I locked up my truck. "Jake! Jake!" they'd shouted, waving their treats. The parents' claps, the cops' thanks, it all mixed together into one big, happy feeling. Karen thought she could push us around, but she was wrong. Justice came, and it tasted sweeter than any ice cream I'd ever scooped. What a way to end the day. So here's the thing, you awesome people out there, sometimes the loudest people think they're untouchable. They yell, they boss everyone around, and they act like nothing can stop them. People like Karen, she was super loud, stomping around, calling the cops on me, thinking she was the queen of everything. She thought no one could touch her, that she could do whatever she wanted and get away with it. But guess what? She was wrong, super wrong. The quiet ones like me, just a guy in an ice cream truck, might just be the ones who change everything. And that's what happened that crazy day. I mean, think about it. I wasn't loud. I didn't yell back at Karen or make a big fuss. I just kept scooping ice cream, watching her, and doing my job. I saw stuff like those sneaky trucks at her house and I told someone about it, quiet like. I didn't know it'd turn into this big deal. But it did. The cops came, Karen got caught, and the neighborhood got better, all because I was there, quiet but paying attention. It's funny how that works, right? The loud ones think they're in charge, but the quiet ones can surprise them big time. What do you think about that? Have you ever seen someone get what they deserve like Karen did? Maybe it was a kid at school who's always mean, pushing people around, but then they get caught and have to sit in timeout. Or maybe a grown-up who acts all big and tough, but then something happens, and everyone sees they're not so great after all. I bet you've got stories like that. Tell me about them below, I want to hear. Did the loud person think they'd win? Did a quiet person help make things right? Let me know where you're watching from too, maybe at home, or school, or outside with your friends. I'm curious. And hey, next time you hear that ice cream jingle, you know, that happy da-da-da-da-dum sound, remember something, you never know who's really watching. It could be me in my truck, or someone else, just going about their day, seeing stuff others miss. That's what I learned from all this. Karen didn't think I mattered, just some guy with popsicles, but I saw her secrets, and it changed everything. So when you hear that tune, look around. Who's there? What's happening? Maybe the quiet ones are the ones to watch out for, in a good way, of course. Let's think about it some more. Karen was loud from the start, yelling at me to leave, waving her phone like a weapon. "You can't park here," she shouted, acting like she owned the whole street. She thought being loud made her strong, made her right. But all that yelling didn't help her, it just made her look silly when the cops showed up for her instead of me. She didn't see it coming, but I did. Well, sort of. I had a hunch, and it paid off. Being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes it means you're smart, watching and waiting for the right moment. I keep picturing her face when the cop said, "We're here for you, Karen Mitchell." Her mouth dropped open, her eyes got huge, and all that loudness just melted away. She went from big and bossy to small and scared in 2 seconds flat. And me? I was still there, scooping ice cream, smiling a little. I didn't need to yell, I just needed to be me. That's a cool thing to know, right? You don't have to be the loudest to make a difference. You can be quiet and still do something big. What about you? Ever been quiet and still helped out? Maybe you saw something wrong, like a kid cheating on a test, and told the teacher without making a fuss. Or maybe you helped a friend who was sad, just by sitting with them, not saying much. Quiet can be strong too. I didn't know that before this happened, but now I do. Karen's loud voice didn't save her, but my quiet watching did. Funny how life works sometimes. Let's imagine it again, that hot day, kids laughing, my truck playing its tune. Karen storms over, all noise and anger, thinking she's got me beat. She didn't know I'd seen those trucks, heard those whispers about the HOA money. She didn't think the ice cream guy could matter. But I did. And the cops? They were quiet too, sneaking up slow, no lights or sirens. They didn't need to be loud, they had the proof, and that was enough. Together, us quiet ones turned her world upside down. Pretty neat, huh? So here's a little secret I figured out: loud people like Karen might scare you at first. They're all big and shouty, making you feel small. But if you stay calm, keep your eyes open, and do what's right, you can be stronger than them. I wasn't trying to be a hero, I was just selling ice cream. But by watching, by telling someone about that truck, I helped stop her. You can do that too, in your own way. Maybe not with cops and handcuffs, but with little things that add up. What do you think? Can quiet people change stuff? I say yes. Like, imagine you're at school, and someone's being a bully, yelling at everyone. You don't have to yell back. Maybe you tell a teacher, or help the kid who's getting picked on, all quiet and sneaky. That's power too. Or maybe at home, you see something unfair like your brother taking your candy and you fix it without a big fight. Quiet doesn't mean nothing, it can mean everything. I keep hearing those kids in my head, cheering after Karen got hauled off. Jake. Jake, they shouted, waving their ice creams. They didn't cheer because I was loud, they cheered because I helped, and I did it my way. The parents clapped too, happy that Karen's stealing days were done. It made me think, we all have a way to make things better. Loud, quiet, whatever, you just gotta use what you've got. And that ice cream jingle? It's more than a sound now. It's a reminder. Every time I turn it on, da-da-da-da-dum, I'll remember this day. Karen thought she was untouchable, but she wasn't. The quiet watchers like me, like the cops, like maybe you can turn things around. So next time you hear it, wherever you are, think about that. Who's watching? Who's waiting to do something good? It might be you. Let's picture it one more time. The sun's hot, the truck's humming, and Karen's yelling her head off. She thinks she's won, calling the cops to get me. But then bam, the twist comes. The cops are there for her, not me, and it's all because I saw stuff she didn't want seen. Quiet little me, with my popsicles and my truck, helped make justice happen. That's a story worth telling, right? And it's not just my story, it's a lesson for all of us. So what's your story? Ever seen a loud person trip over their own tricks? Ever been the quiet one who made a difference? I bet you have. Drop it below, tell me what happened, where you are, what you think. I'm sitting here, imagining you out there, maybe eating ice cream while you watch this. Did someone get what they deserved? Did you help? I want to know every bit. And here's my last thought: keep your eyes open. The world's full of Karens, loud, bossy, thinking they're on top. But it's also full of quiet heroes, people like you and me, doing our thing, watching, helping. Next time that ice cream truck rolls by, listen to that jingle. Da-da-da-da-dum. It's not just about treats, it's about surprises, about who's really out there, ready to change things. You never know, it might be you next time, making the world a little better, one quiet step at a time. So that's it, friends. Loud doesn't always win. Quiet can be mighty. Karen learned that the hard way, and I learned it the fun way. What about you? Tell me below, and let's keep this going. Oh, and if you hear that jingle, give a wave. You never know who's watching back.